Hey everybody. Sometimes I get asked questions from my critical Q&A show that require a longer answer than what I can provide if I wanted to really give, everything I wanted to say about that particular answer. And so I will make just a one-off video to answer some questions or take up some subject matter. And this week, what we're going to be talking about is people who leave Scientology. And specifically, I have some thoughts about this. The question I was asked is this. I am sure you remember in the Louis Theroux film, My Scientology Movie, Louis commented that you could argue that Marty went along with the regime until he fell out of favor. This is the crux of which I would like to know your opinion on. Not about Marty Rathman, actually, but about Scientology defectors in general. I am playing devil's advocate here for the sake of the discussion, but is there an argument that defectors cut and run from Scientology not because of disgust over their actions and involvement in abuses, but because they were now suffering from abuses within the Church of Scientology? Would many of these defectors not otherwise still be in the church? This is not to say that most defectors do not show genuine remorse in what they had propagated and participated in, but this usually comes about in the aftermath of their departure from Scientology as far as I am aware. Are there any cases where defectors leave because they simply cannot tolerate involving themselves in abuses against other people? Now, in order to address this fully, I need to actually go back to the point where people join Scientology, and all of this, I think, applies pretty generally to destructive cults, no matter what their flavor or brand is. And the point I wanted to make first off is that it's intensely personal why somebody joins a destructive cult. No one joins a destructive cult, by the way. That's not what they think they're doing. They think they're joining a group that is going to help them and provide them with love and support and care and help of some kind. Even if that help is just us, having some friends or a support system or something. That's the motivating force behind that. And that even applies, I think, in many cases to second-gen members. In other words, the children of original members or their grandchildren or great-grandchildren, because there are many instances where second gens just leave, take off. They don't have anything to do with it. But if the cult can somehow get a hook in on those second-gen members, I mean, yes, there are many who could just be raised in that environment, never knew anything else about the real world or the big wide world, and so they have no choice but to get involved in this, in the cult activity. But even then, there's usually some, from my experience, there's some motivation that would keep them involved in the group, something personal to them that they think is important enough that they continue on with what they're doing. Now, that all being said, it usually takes some time. There's sort of a honeymoon period with these groups where, the group can do no wrong. Once you've accepted or fallen into line with the idea that you've convinced yourself that this group that you're now part of is the most wonderful thing in the world, and it's great, and I couldn't do better for myself than with what I'm doing. And usually during this phase, there's a lot of talk about it. The person is excited and maybe telling their friends about it and their family and wants them to come and be part of this. And it's just a big, rah-rah. They're usually not fully steeped in the lore or the mythology or the belief system yet. It's all fresh and new and exciting, right? It's kind of like buying a new car or something, woo! So that phase is usually a phase where they're not, a person's got the blinders on. They're not going to see anything else than what is good and wonderful and great about this new group, unless somebody actually really sits them down and has a very honest heart-to-heart with them and can somehow get through that, glossy, the wonderfulness of it all, the sort of Pollyanna aspect of that, which can happen, of course, at any time. But generally speaking, people muff it. They get angry, they get upset, they tell the person they're wrong, how could they? What are you doing in Scientology? That's crazy. Have they told you about Xenu yet? And all that. And, if you come at somebody like that, generally speaking, the reaction you're going to get is for them to double down on that belief or on this new group that they're part of, Scientology or whatever else. And they're not going to be interested in hearing any ill words or insults or ideas that might be different from what they think the whole thing is all about, because they know what this is all about, because they've had a personal experience. And it's hard to get most people past that because now they're becoming emotionally invested. All right. Now the person himself will carry on in the group for some period of time, months, years, decades, and they will start to see things that are wrong. Things will come across their line of sight or into their sphere, and they will go, that's weird, or that doesn't quite line up with the principles or the guidelines or the rules or the morality of the group. Maybe it's from the group leader, if it's a little tiny group, or maybe it's from some mid-level person, or maybe it's from another co-member who says something, does something wrong, and the person can recognize there's something wrong here. When that happens, we now enter into this thing called cognitive dissonance, where there's a noise in the person's head because of conflicting ideas. This group is, Scientology. This group is supposed to be all about high ARC, affinity reality communication. They're supposed to be friendly. They're supposed to be nice to each other. They're supposed to be in communication with each other. And yet the new Scientologist, or the Scientologist who's been along for a while, this person I'm talking about, sees a couple staff members yelling at each other, or sees a couple public Scientologists yelling at each other, or sees a Sea Org member come in and lay down the law with the staff because he's there on some mission. And when that happens, there's this, like I said, there's this noise that happens. The person feels uncomfortable. They feel like, whoa, what's this all about? But generally speaking, it's something that's happening over there. And so, it's to those people. And those people, if the Scientologist who's now experiencing this uncomfortable noise goes and talks to one of those people, maybe the staff member who's getting yelled at by the Sea Org member, and says, I don't understand, why was he yelling at you? Well, the staff member is trained and indoctrinated to only present the very best face to this public Scientologist or this new staff member. And they will then tell the person, oh, it's okay, it's fine, I deserved it, or yeah, that's unusual, maybe he was having a bad day, or what, any of 1,000 things they could say that will attempt to nullify and take away the dissonance that this person has, that they're experiencing. And the person, because they're emotionally invested, wants to believe that the group is good and that this is just a momentary lapse, an aberration, a strange random occurrence that's not usual. If they start thinking it's usual, then we're moving to the advanced stage of leaving. But where they can write off or rationalize what happened, they will very willingly and gladly do so. And so they can sort of put that aside, forget about it, throw it in a box. That was just a one-off, crazy, it's weird, strange. I don't have to worry about that anymore, and they can carry on with what they're doing. And this cycle will happen over and over and over and over again. And because somebody can rationalize those kind of abuses or those kind of situations that come up that seem strange and weird, they don't think of them as abuses. They refile it in their memory in a way. They'll relabel it as something, oh, okay, well, this was weird, but that's just whatever, and that rationalization will allow them to forget about it, so that they're not in a frame of mind that they're in an abusive group. They're not thinking in those terms. Might happen again, might happen again, might happen again. Again, you can rationalize it, The closer, the difficulty comes in when it becomes closer to the person. Say a friend of theirs is declared a suppressive person, or is kicked off course, or has done something that Scientology is now persecuting that person for some reason. Now the person will have a harder time rationalizing this, but they'll still be working over time to quiet that dissonance that occurs in their head, because they don't want that there. They want to feel that this group is everything that it should be. So when their friend or family member is the subject of abuse or the target of ethics or justice or whatever in Scientology, then the person will still rationalize it. Right? They somehow deserved it. Somehow that person did something that cause them to deserve what's happening to them. And this is only reinforced, remember, in Scientology, because L. Ron Hubbard has, as part of the dogma, that you are the one who is fully responsible for your own condition at all times. And that anything that's bad that happens to you is simply the result of your own actions, your own wrongdoings or moral transgressions or whatever you want to call it. In Scientology, they call it overts. Your overts are what are the cause of you pulling in justice or pulling in this kind of abusive behavior. So Scientologists really buy into that, and it's something that's given to them fairly early on in the indoctrination process. No matter how you come into Scientology, you're going to learn about overts pretty quickly, and you're going to learn about the personal responsibility, where it's all on you. So, so this contributes to the person's ability to rationalize and quiet their cognitive dissonance by putting the blame on the individual member, not the church as a whole, or on L. Ron Hubbard or David Miscavige. The most important thing about this that I'm trying to get across is that the person will tell themselves, that could never happen to me, because I'm a good Scientologist, I'm a good NXIVM member, I'm a good Christian, I'm a good whatever. And whatever group they're part of, they think that they are being the epitome of all that is rational and good, and they're towing the line and doing all the right things. And so that's a very important thought that they're having when they're telling themselves, well, that would never happen to me. Well, there's a point I'd like to make here about destructive cults, first off, which is their nature. And I love this line from the movie Silence of the Lambs, so I'm going to use it here. Here it is.
First principles, Clarice. Simplicity. Read Marcus Aurelius. Of each particular thing, ask, what is it in itself? What is its nature?
So my point with that is we have to ask ourselves, with a group like Scientology, what is its nature? What is it? Well, it's a destructive cult. And so because it's that way, it's always going to end up abusing every single one of its individual members. It can't help itself. And even when things start happening to the person themselves, they can still rationalize it, they can still work through various reasons that they'll invent out of just total whole cloth as to why they're being abused or why this is happening to them. But if it's a hard enough strike, if it hits them, you know, in the pocketbook, or it hits them whatever on the family, with their spouse, with a good friend of theirs that they're not willing to just so easily rationalize disconnecting from, whatever the trigger point is for the person, and it's going to be individual for every single person. Whatever it is, when that trigger point is hit, that's when the person sees, oh, this can and does happen to me. This is happening to me. And there's a period of incredulity. There's a period of disbelief, of denial. Like, this can't be happening. There's no way. And all the, rigmarole that goes on with denial. I mean, it's a heady process to have to work through that. And of course, the thing about destructive cults is usually they don't lay off. Usually once they start an attack, they double down on it and come back even harder. So if the person tries to fight it, they just getting hit harder and harder. They either toe the line or they're toast. And that's the nature of a destructive cult. So in many, many ways, the cult model lends itself to this. It inevitably produces this result. And the person is stuck thinking now, oh, wow. And they start then, once it's hit them hard enough and they realize that it can happen to them, then a lot of the cognitive dissonance that from the past, that little box they've been shoving everything in opens up, and they start going, oh, well, then there was this, and there was this, and there was this, and there was this. And all these things start coming to light that they had previously been able to rationalize, and now they find in their new circumstances that they can't do that. Now, where you see this sort of thing happen and people stay in the cult anyway, the only explanation I have for that is because there's still some other part of their life, some connection they have, some business they're involved in, something very, very personal to them that is overriding their ability to step out. because if they lose that other thing, it's even more valuable to them. That, you know, that they would lose that thing would be a bigger blow to them than just, you know, than the abuse that's happening. And so they'll put up with it in order to maintain that. And I think that's probably the case with most of the people. I would feel confident in saying over 50% of the people who are still in Scientology are probably there because of that. But most people see, oh, I need to get out of this. Like, it's hit them very hard, and it's hit them usually pretty fast. And they're rocking and reeling and whoa, and they start reevaluating everything in light of this new information or experience. And so that's how they start going, oh, wait a minute, this has been abuse. And they start correctly labeling what they've been seeing all along, but have been rationalizing away. And so then they can't deny it anymore. They're no longer in that denial phase, and they have to go, oh, and now they realize they have some decisions to make. Now, if they are a good-hearted person and not a sociopath, or not, you know, have not gone so far down the narcissism rut that they, you know, can still be aware of other people and still have empathy for other people, then they start wondering, oh, what's happening to other people in this group too? And their eyes open up even more. And they start seeing, oh, wow, there's injustices occurring around here. Somebody should do something about this. And so they decide that they need to start acting in the benefit of the other people who have been victimized or abused by this group. And so they start speaking out, or they want to, you know, take down Scientology or something like that. And thus is born every revenge trope that has ever existed in every movie anywhere. I always thought of Kill Bill with this, right? There's a great scene in Kill Bill, which I'll show you right now.
I'm a killer. I'm a murdering bastard, you know that? And there are consequences to breaking the heart of a murdering bastard. You experience some of them. Was my reaction really that surprising?
Yes, it was. Could you do what you did? Of course you could. But I never thought you would or could do that to me.
I'm really sorry, kiddo. But you thought wrong.
So that is that face that Uma Thurman has there as Beatrix Kiddo is pretty much the face of every single person who leaves Scientology and wants to, you know, deal with their oppressor, their you know, what formerly their guru, their god, their, you know, source of enlightenment. Now they want to take that thing down and destroy it because they feel so wronged and had been so wronged all that time and hadn't been aware of how wronged they had been. So that's where you get a lot of the fervor and the anger and the you know, that comes at Scientology and other destructive cults by former members. And there's absolutely, of course, I'm not implying or inferring in any way that there's something wrong with that anger at all. I have certainly experienced it myself. And I've also experienced that over time, as you lash back and as you start taking action against and that sort of thing, you also start becoming aware of and assimilating into the big wide world again. And as you start finding other things in the world that are not abusive and that are truly something that are fun and wonderful and great to be part of, then the relative importance of that group you were part of and how much you need to strike back at it and keep harping on and working on that thing tends to ease off as time passes. And I don't know that it's so dissimilar to leaving a relationship, you know, that you've been very, very much involved in. We have made the parallel on this channel between narcissistic relationships, one-on-one relationships. We call them one-on-one cults. And so that those relationships and membership in a destructive cult like Scientology. Well, in the same way, I'll make the parallel that leaving is a lot like breaking up with an ex, only it's an abusive ex. And, it's not just a regular kind of breakup. And as with most breakups, I think most people, give it enough time and the person eventually gets over it. But not because people are telling them to get over it, not because somebody insists they get over it, not because they need to get over it. It's just a process that eventually they get to that place where they are now over that. Some people it takes a short period of time, some people it takes a long period of time, depending on the amount of abuse, depending on them, who they are, what their background and experience is, etc. So I think that is sort of the whole story of getting in, seeing what's going on, and then leaving that I wanted to kind of lay out here. I don't know if this is particularly helpful. It's just my views on it. Maybe this is, I hope this is of some use. But it's a long answer to a short question. But I wanted to give it give all the information I wanted to give on this, and that's why it didn't fit into a regular Q&A show. So with that, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Bye bye.